getting rejected on Dragon's Den was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
This is Lucie, a university student who started mixing oils in her parents' conservatory and somehow built a hair care brand making over £5 million a year.
We finished on 5 mil 2024, and then yeah, we're going to be doing more than that this year.
Who the hell does that? One night she posted a TikTok, a simple clip, and the comments flooded in. People weren't just watching, they were begging to buy.
So if I didn't post that video on TikTok, my business would not exist today.
She'd started with just a few £100s, no funding, no team, just her, a formula and a phone. But then came Dragon's Den. National TV, millions watching, and every single dragon said no.
I'm gonna say that I'm out.
I'm out. I'm out.
I'm out.
The dragons absolutely roasted and trolled me on national TV.
But Lucie didn't hide. She posted, she owned it, and she went viral again. Now, hair syrup is stocked, sold out, and shouted out across the globe. And Lucie, she's built a multi-million-pound brand out of a conservatory. So we're here with Lucie to see how a student's side hustle, powered by TikTok and rejection, became a business that's changing the game. This is More Than Numbers. Okay, so we are here with the beautiful and brilliant Lucie, founder of Hair Syrup. Lucie, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
What is Hair Syrup?
So Hair Syrup is a TikTok viral hair care brand, and we basically sell a range of natural pre-wash hair oil treatments.
So founded in 2020, 5 years later, how much revenue have you done so far?
Maybe like 15 mil.
In 5 years?
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. So before you founded Hair Syrup, what were you doing at the time or prior to that?
So the way this all came about is I'd been using, obviously not what we sell now, but very similar kind of oil concoctions, if you like.
Yeah.
I'd been using them on my own hair for maybe 18 months before this, because I fried my hair off when I was a teenager.
No way.
And then I went on a hair transformation journey and basically tried all this stuff, didn't work, ended up making my own stuff, did work.
Yeah.
So when I went home then, during lockdown, my friends and family were saying, oh my God, what have you done to your hair? And it was like double the thickness, double the length. I was growing out the old bleach and it obviously looked really good. And so I went home and just was settled there. I was carrying on with my studying from home remotely. And then it was like summer of 2020 and I downloaded TikTok for the first time. And then I made my first TikTok. I had literally 3 followers, never really used the app before. And hair care was really trending during lockdown because people were giving themselves their own haircuts, they were trying to grow their hair out. So I was like, I'll do a TikTok that basically explains how I went from A to B. And then that TikTok, I spoke a lot about the oils that I was using and these little treatments I was using that were all natural. And then that went viral, and that's literally where it started.
So before you went viral, how did you come about the ingredients to make the hair? Like, was you just randomly experimenting, or there was some thought process behind it? Was it, what did you study at Warwick?
English lit.
So nothing to do with science, chemicals, hair. So how did you come about to create those ingredients?
Well, when I look back, I was obviously at uni spending a lot of time on PubMed, Google Scholar, things like that. So I actually used that quite a lot.
Okay.
So again, I didn't really realize what I was doing at the time, but I was researching every single thing that I was putting in there. But I did a lot of cross-referencing. So what's on the market at the moment, what are the sort of popular ingredients. And one thing that I did as well is if I went into, say, Boots or Superdrug or whatever, I was looking at what was marketing the hair care products that were available.
Right.
So every time you look at, especially kind of lower end, cheaper hair care products, they're always centered around some sort of ingredient, and it's always natural. So it'll be watermelon or honey or argan or avocado or something natural.
So how much did you need to get started, and what did that cost go towards?
No more than a few £100s.
Oh wow.
And what I did when I started it was, you have to get your products tested, which I don't know, I think it was like 150 quid to get the first one tested. Okay. So that was the biggest expense. But my website that I made and built, it was like £3.99 a month.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I was frugal.
Yeah.
But it definitely worked out in my favour. But yeah, I I bought 10 of everything is what I did. So I bought from Amazon a box of 10 mailer boxes and 10 bottles and 10 this. And what I was doing was with the labels, I didn't buy printed labels from online or whatever. I printed them off my parents' printer at home.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, so
And
you
then I cut
designed
them
it
out.
yourself?
Yeah, for free.
Oh,
and
wow.
then cut them out. I don't know how anyone bought it, but they did, and cut them out and stuck them on with glue.
At what point did you realise you've outgrown the space that you're in and you need to get somewhere bigger?
So the space I started in was a conservatory,
Okay.
and my mum and dad just wanted me out. Like they never wanted me to start the business because they were really worried that it was gonna distract me from my degree. You know, I'd been working for years and years to get into that uni, and then everything was just gonna go wrong. My future was gonna crumble, and I'd drop out, and everything would be terrible. When we decided, okay, it's time to move on and actually find somewhere, was when I had my first retailer approach me.
Nice.
I went on the hunt for a little warehouse basically, but because of where we live is so rural, there was no warehouses.
Right.
And the best I could find was an old charity shop.
Nice.
That needed renovating, but it did the job.
Right.
And I've actually still got that building. We still use it.
Till this day?
Yeah.
So from that building, where did you go to next?
So we stayed in that building. I did about 1.4 mil in that building.
Wow.
In a year, which if you saw the building was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So that's when we went from like 140k in a year to 1.4 mil, and that space is what allowed us to have almost an 1,000% growth.
Crazy.
In less than a few months really. But then we got a second building, and this actually was our first ever industrial unit, proper industrial unit, had a roller shut door and all of that stuff. So we got that unit then, and then the year that we got that unit, we did 4.5 mil.
Wow.
And now we've just moved into a massive, huge warehouse.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to allow us to scale. I'd say we can probably scale to about 15 mil in that warehouse before we then need to either get another one or upsize.
So it sounds like you've got a lot of stock and inventory. How did you go about finding the manufacturers for all of these products?
I'd never in my life had I met someone who owned a beauty business, an online beauty business. You know, where do you start?
Right.
Who do you ask? So I literally just scoured Google for weeks, and eventually, and I'd ring these companies. So it's like, no, I'm not working with you. Who are you?
Yeah.
What is this brand?
Yeah.
You know, they work with big brands, didn't touch me. So eventually we found a manufacturer up north who would work with us. They didn't offer us finished goods because we couldn't reach their MOQs, but the solution to it was that they would send us bulk goods in 10 kg drums.
Okay.
And they said, you know, if you can accept the drums with the finished product,
Yeah.
you can decanter it into a manual filling machine, which we were using already.
Right.
And you can then fill it into your own bottles and label it yourselves. And that's how we can work with you.
Earlier you mentioned you had a viral TikTok moment. Talk us through that experience and how that ended up happening.
I'd unintentionally created a viral sales pitch of a product that actually didn't even exist yet. I actually deleted the TikTok account that had the original viral video on it.
Oh, wow.
Because it was so distracting, TikTok. This is before I turned it into a business. I was trying to study. I was finding myself just on the app. So I actually thought, oh, do you know what? Screw this, I'm going to delete the app. And then someone messaged me on Facebook, please help me, I've fried my hair off during lockdown. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
And there was something about hair syrup and this oil in this video that refused to be ignored, basically.
Let's address the elephant in the room, Dragon's Den. How did you go about applying for the show?
So I didn't actually apply for Dragon's Den. They asked me to go on. I wouldn't have applied for it myself. I knew that whatever happened on Dragon's Den, however catastrophically wrong or well it went, I knew that we would make a theatrical out of it on socials. And then as it turned out, what ended up happening was the dragons absolutely roasted and trolled me on national TV. So we decided in response, after it aired, to roast and troll them on TikTok, and it went down a treat.
Give us some insight into the whole process. What are some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes that you went through?
So it's a long day.
Yeah.
I don't think people realise this when you go on Dragon's Den. I was literally saying to someone earlier that I had a lot of people, you know, who know me in real life, and they thought that it was filmed live. They didn't realise that it was it gets filmed sometimes a year in advance. Mine was sort of 7-8 months in advance. So you have to wait 7-8 months, and it's horrible. I hated every minute of waiting because I had no idea. I did not know what the cut was going to be. I didn't know what they'd include, how I would look, what they would show, what I was going to be saying, what they would be saying. So it was awful, the waiting game. And then the day itself, you know, when you're there in the studio, it's exhausting. You turn up, you've got to recite your script. And I was actually on stage. So my episode, my part of the episode was something like 18 minutes. But I was on that stage for over 3 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And in that room, and there's lights everywhere, and it's hot, and there's lots of people, and it's very intense. And you know, the amount of people, I still get comments to this day, and they say, oh, you're so stupid. Like, you didn't know what anything was on Dragon's Den. And I actually think, do you know how much money I would pay you to go on that stage, stand there for 3 hours, get absolutely grilled by 6 adults who, of course, they know more than me and are trying to catch you out, basically. And I would like to see anyone not fold under that pressure.
Do you feel like it was a blessing in disguise being rejected by the Dens?
Oh my gosh. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. We've got nearly 100,000 more followers on social media. We've had so much press coverage. We've had a 66% sales uplift that's basically continued pretty much since the show. It's transformed the whole trajectory of my business, and not only for the business, but for me. I got rejected by all 6 dragons. I think people couldn't make sense of it because they were like, she has got great numbers. The business is fantastic. Fantastic from what people know about the products are great. Customers are happy. People love them on socials. What's wrong with it? And it went down as being one of the most controversial episodes of Dragon's Den ever to air. And when I spoke to the girl who does my social media about it, you know, I had to let the dust settle because I was quite embarrassed and I was licking my wounds for a little while after the rejection. But when I spoke to her about it, she was just like, no, this is actually really iconic. She was like, I trust you to get rejected by 6 dragons. She's like, we can make so much content out of this. It'll be hilarious. You know, you're like the underdog. Lucie and I just started to explore the different content options that we had. And every meme that was existing, you know, the sad hamster meme, anything that was going on TikTok, we were like, how can we make this about me going on Dragon's Den? And we just rinsed it.
That is so good.
We got 22 million profile views.
That's crazy. In
a matter of days after it had been aired. And now a lot of people who know us for the Dragon's Den content. So it's the best thing that ever happened to my business and to me.
Yeah, no, it all sounds like it was destined to happen. So we've talked about the Dragon's Den. We've given us an insight into the back-end process of hair syrup. I think it's time to get to the important stuff, and let's talk numbers. Lucie, with hair syrup growing so fast online, how important is having your own website for a brand, not just for sales, but for building trust and standing out?
Well, I think your website is your shop window, isn't it, in 2025? It's super, super important. It's where I really get to speak to my customers one-on-one directly. They can learn about the products, learn about the brand, and they can hear from us in our voice. So yeah, hair syrup couldn't run without a website.
What Lucie just said is something we hear from almost every successful founder. Owning your own website changes the game. And if you're starting or scaling your brand online, one thing we've seen that actually helps you sell more is using a .store domain. It's a domain built for sellers, simple, easy, and instantly tells people this is where you buy. In fact, studies show that websites with a .store domain get up to 87% more traction and rank 2 times higher on Google. Why? Because everyone knows an online store, and so does Google. Over 1.5 million sellers are already on it, including brands backed by names like Mr. Beast, Rihanna, and even Emirates Airline. And here's the best part. Right now, you can grab your .store domain for just 99 cents using the exclusive link and code in the description below. Plus, when you sign up, you unlock free access to Elevate.store. It's an online toolkit packed with deals from brands like Shopify, Canva, AutoDS, and more. It's basically a starter pack for online success, free with your domain. So if you're doing something of your own, don't just rely on social media. Own your store, own your future. What was your revenue in year one, and what is your revenue now?
It was around 40k, and I was a sole trader, so it wasn't bad for a little student side hustle, for sure.
No, for sure. And compared to right now, what revenue did you do last year?
We finished on 5 mil 2024.
Crazy.
And then, yeah, we're going to be doing more than that this year, hopefully.
Yeah.
Fair bit more, yeah.
For sure. What's the most money you've made in a single day?
Over 100k.
Damn.
Yeah, over 100k. We had one day, actually, this wasn't our biggest day, but this was pretty wild, where I made a TikTok video about a product, one product, and the TikTok video probably took me 3 minutes to make.
Yeah.
And it went so viral, and I sold like over 35 grams worth of
Just off the TikTok video?
one TikTok video.
That is crazy.
And that was in a day and a half.
What are the typical profit margins in a beauty product?
It really depends. Things like makeup, much higher.
Yeah.
My products manufactured in the UK, 100% natural, and they've got no water in them. But in terms of our annual, we normally sit about our gross profit margin as a business normally sits about an average of between 63 to 65%.
That is very healthy.
Pretty healthy, yeah.
Can you break down the revenue across your different sales channels?
Yeah, so this ebbs and flows a little bit, but, and this is another thing they didn't really like about me on Dragon's Den, TikTok Shop makes up a big majority, TikTok Shop UK now, a big majority of our revenue. So it sits about 45% of our annual revenue comes from TikTok Shop directly. An average of around 30% on our website. So obviously direct to our consumer, which is where we like having people because, you know, they're our customers then. And then our wholesale was sitting at averaging about 22%. Again, like I said, these ebb and flow a little bit, but these were the last things I heard about it. So another thing, you know, we're kind of really focusing on strengthening and growing our retail partnerships because that's where, you know, they're really great for cash flow and that's where you get the volumes shifted through the doors. So, yeah.
So as well as being online, you're in some retailers, as you mentioned, and in some physical retail shops. Talk to me about your relationship with Boots.
So Boots reached out to me and I couldn't believe it. I'd manifested Boots though. I was like, one day I made this really viral TikTok about it and I was giving a speech and I'd actually said to my family, I said, oh, when hair syrup started to sort of take off a little bit, maybe a year in, I said, oh, I think these products will be in Boots one day. And every single person laughed at me and they were like, you have lost the plot. What are you talking about? I think when you're an entrepreneur, you get that a lot. You have to be so delusional in your self-belief. And I said, no, they will be. So we sell to quite a few different retailers. One of our biggest ones in store, we sell to Urban Outfitters, which is really cool. I love going into Urban and seeing them on the shelves and it's so on brand. Yeah. And that's really important for me is to find retailers who identify with hair syrup, have a similar target audience, have similar marketing messages. So we also stock on ASOS, which are quite busy. And then I like to kind of make a lot of content and get a lot of clout about having the products on physical shelves. Where I make most of my money, where the kind of big money comes in is through my online e-commerce beauty retailers. The one that I work very closely with is Just My Look. So you can go on there and we sell a lot through them. And I think it's because people go there to they'll do like a little haul. So they're buying some perfume, they're getting some shampoo, some conditioner. And it's really good to work with people with retailers like that because they have very similar target audiences to us. We're able to do a lot of marketing together. Yeah, ultimately that's who buys the most hair syrup. They're basically like my biggest customer, these online retailers. So
at what point did you feel financially secure to be able to pay yourself?
I don't know how people do it if they're not getting, you know, at least some personal financial security. I think, you know, not that I'm an expert, but honestly, the way that, you know, so much of your business's money just gets rinsed through expenses, tax, outgoings, make the most of what you can take, look after yourself as well as just, I truly believe that, you know, what is the point of having a huge, really successful, profitable business if you personally, if your personal finances are suffering?
Yes.
So that's my opinion.
And so what are your biggest expenses for the business?
Stock. We're quite lucky because we're based in Southwest Wales. You know, our things like renting a warehouse and stuff like that isn't anywhere near what it would be if we were in London.
Right.
And then we spend a lot on ads. We've reined it in a little bit. Things went a bit crazy last year, got a bit out of control, that weren't under my supervision.
Let's talk about marketing and TikTok. You mentioned it was about 40% of your revenue driver. How do you turn those views into actual money?
TikTok's a funny one. People always ask, what's the secret? How do you go viral? What's the formula? And you see all these people now, they're TikTok gurus and, I'll tell you how to go viral. This is the secret. And it's true, it is easy to create a viral. You know, there's content pillars, there's storylines, there's clickbaits, there's hooks, there's ways of getting a video to go viral. But I always raise an eyebrow to how sustainable that would be if your content is not authentic. So the way Hair Syrup's been built and the way we continue to build it is just through authenticity. And everyone says that and it's such a buzzword, but I can see through people on TikTok, brands who seeing what brands like mine are doing and then they think, okay, if I make a video like that with a similar hook and then it'll go viral, and it might go viral, but what sets us apart from all of the other brands is the fact that we are so true to ourselves. The brand is still, you know, founder-led by me. We are so agile. Anything that's happening on TikTok, we're always there. We're always reactive. Since we've stopped talking about products, we've made more money than ever before, month on month.
So would you say that is the best content strategy, the day in a life stuff?
So if I were to break down our content strategy, we do a little bit of behind the scenes, a little bit of a day in the life. We do hair care tips, we do hair care routines, we do personal things, what we're up to, where we're going. We do ingredient deep dives, product deep dives, what product you need for this. So we do break things down and there is method to the madness. It's not just going on there and going crazy. There's always method to it. But I would say biggest piece of advice, how to go viral, how to make it sustainable, how to not be a one-hit wonder. Just be yourself. Because there's a space for everyone on TikTok.
And what would you say is more effective, paid marketing or organic marketing?
Organic, any day of the week. I know that you can scale a brand in 2025 by having a product, hammering ads, hammering affiliates, but your margins are squeezed when you do that. And also, you run the real risk of just being another one of those brands that is huge on TikTok for a few months. And they're trendy, and then what? Organic for me. You know, we do everything. We do the SEO, we do the meta ads, we do email marketing. We've got all of those stable, traditional pillars. But TikTok is just so amazing because you can be so agile with it. Something's not working, you can try something else. Don't like this, try that instead. And that's basically how we like to do it.
So aside from the social media marketing, what other sort of marketing tools are more effective for Hair Syrup?
A really big thing for me, digital and print press. So having our products put in magazines, newspapers, online, journalists reviewing them, honestly, it's so effective.
So Lucie, you've been running Hair Syrup for the last 5 years or so. What would you say has been the biggest challenge in that whole journey? And were there times where you thought it just might not work?
Yes. I've had a lot of times where I thought this isn't going to work, I should just give up, I should stop doing it, there's no point, what am I doing this for? But some of the most difficult things I think come when you're having like a bit of a growth period. So anytime the business is sort of expanding and you're doing new things that you've never done before, that's always really, really difficult because I have no one to kind of tell me what to do, how to do things. I am just winging it pretty much by myself most of the time. But I think that's obviously what helps you grow and become a better, more resourceful entrepreneur in the long run.
And so looking forward, what are your plans for hair syrup? New products, new retailers, what have you got coming?
The next retailers we're going to be looking at are retailers across Europe, parts of North America, things like that. So I've got my eye on a few. I'd really love to get into Ulta Beauty and places like that, so that'd be awesome. And then in terms of new products, we are bringing out a cherry hair oil, which cherries are the kind of in thing for 2025, so we think that's going to be really popular. Cool. And then we're also going to launch a leave-in conditioner eventually, and a hair mask at some point. So it's really exciting.
So exciting.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of viewers who are watching that would want to get into the beauty space. What is one piece of advice you would give them in starting out?
I would say find yourself a hero product, so something that you can get really well known for. Don't try and spread yourself too thin by launching and bringing out loads of different stuff. Get your hero product to get your name out there and get your community, fan base, customers excited, and I would say grow and expand from there.
That's amazing. Lucie, you've absolutely been a pleasure to interview today. You've taken us through the behind the scenes of hair syrup, given us some gems, dropped some numbers. And it sounds like there's a lot of exciting things to come in the future. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on. And there you have it, guys. It's been More Than Numbers.